I want to make a Rubik's Cube out of wood. Done. But that's pretty boring.
How about this one?
Yeah, let's do that.
Since every square inch of this thing gets painted in the end, my starting material of choice is good old wavy pine from the home center. I like to get my panel glue up started as early as I can on a project, so I'll get everything chopped to slightly oversized and start working on that. Have you ever put off flattening your lumber, thinking that either clamps or eventual screws will pull it together? That's my logic at this stage. And this is an art project, so paint can hide a lot of cupping, right? While those first panels dry, I'll work on the bones for this cube with some scrap 2x2s. I'll cut those down to what I am sure is 19.5 inches. Cut all of them to definitely 19.5 inches. As I go to mock them up, well, 18.5. Useless. I can use them later, so I'll just go ahead and save those. Now I have to rip some 2x4s to get the material I need, and wouldn't you know it, my table saw is having trouble getting through the full depth of a 2x4. That means lowering the blade to halfway, making a cut on all the pieces, and then raising it up to full depth. The problem was buildup of pitch on the blade. After I cleaned that up, she was back in full depth cutting condition. These frames get put together with simple pocket holes and glue, and I'll just make 4 identical parts. And stick on some uprights and clamp and screw in the other side. I need to make 4 wider panels now, each being 3 boards wide. I figured that I had enough clamps to do all 4 at the same time. The clamp setup got more heterogeneous with each one though, ending with this thing. I'm trying to use my last parallel clamp and a couple of squeeze clamps on the other side. Another wouldn't you know it moment, that didn't work. You can't have too many clamps. Might not be just a cliche thing that woodworkers like to spout off when talking to other woodworkers. Out of clamps, I need to trim these panels, and here you can really get a sense of how trash this wood is. Look at that thing. Some were okay, but most of these boards should have never escaped Home Depot's back of house burn pile. It's all gonna work though, trust me. Next thing is to add a profile for the spaces between the blocks. So I picked up this cool bit and clamped down a fence, as the fence that comes with the router table wouldn't go back far enough for this cut. I'm liking it, so 54 blocks get that treatment. Then I switched to a roundover bit for the edges that make sense to do so. My thoughts are it's always better to take the work to the tool whenever you can, rather than the other way around. So router table over handheld router in this case. Now those panels can start getting married to their frames, just glue and screws from the inside. Before I seal this bottom box, let's put a baby in there. The second frame is too short for pocket holes through the uprights, so countersinked holes through the faces here. I'll just be sure to drill those holes deep enough so I can hide them later. Before I put the top on the upper box, I'll glue the two together on an angle and put some screws from the inside. Any automotive guys out there, don't laugh at my technique, but I'm going to use Bondo as a base for sculpting. This worked really well, and the smell reminded me of my childhood, as my dad is a pretty seasoned classic car restorer by hobby. I'll do a quick sanding to get everything flat-ish, and then have some fun with the oscillating tool and the Dremel to 3Dify the individual blocks a bit more. This cone-shaped bit worked pretty well at sorting out the shallow grooves made as a result of the wavy wood sliding on the router table. I rarely break these out, but the smallest sanding form got into those grooves nicely. Now the whole thing can get a coat of primer. I just use Kills as I had it on hand. And then I'll use my replica to mark out where each color goes. Since the intersection between the pieces run both horizontally and vertically, I'll start taping off one plane for some black paint. Before the brush hits the work, you're optimistic about a single coat operation, but that feeling fades within the first 5 seconds and you start doing calculations about how much more time a second or third coat is going to take. Eventually I get them all lined out and dried, and then put on some of the highest gloss water-based product I could find. Looks a little milky out of the can, but dried to a nice plastic toy sheen. Pretty cool. If you want to see something that's way beyond pretty cool, check out my gigantic Rube Goldberg machine here. And thanks for watching.